The woman was horrified to discover her son outside and immediately shouted loudly, but the son seemed to have lost the ability to move. She hurried downstairs to go out, but was forcibly restrained by the sunlight, leaving her to watch helplessly as her son died on the spot. Everyone, it's time for another horror movie to keep you company during your late night snack. Today, we are introducing the newly released American horror film, Worm Syndrome. Ashland, a town built on a mountain, experienced an outbreak of worm disease. Once infected, people cannot be exposed to sunlight. Otherwise, they will suffer full-body ulceration and die. Moreover, once the worms enter the brain, they can alter human thought processes to a certain extent. Combined with the instinct to survive, the infected will rationalize the existence of the worms, including the mayor. Therefore, when all network communications in the city collapsed, the mayor's broadcast became the sole source of information. When most people were infected with the worm disease, the healthy ones became the anomalies. These three sisters are the healthy anomalies. They shaved their heads to prevent worm infestation. They lived frugally in an enclosed house. However, during the day, they could indulge a bit since the worm disease patients dared not go outside. Jessie roamed the deserted town searching for some food. She unexpectedly discovered Tommy's body and cautiously looked around before approaching it as if finding a treasure. After observing for a moment, she immediately crouched down and placed the worms into a plastic bag. Then she took out her phone, which had no signal, to record a video. She lifted Tommy's shirt and examined the ulcerated chest cavity, finding the anticipated situation. At that moment, Tommy's mother witnessed the scene.
You fucking animal! Leave him alone!
Jessie hurriedly got up but slipped, falling onto Tommy, and ended up with her face smeared with worms and blood. She quickly grabbed her phone and fled in a rush, scrambling and stumbling as she left.
That's my son!
Jessie returned to her residence and upon entering the elevator stripped down to her underwear. Rose quickly helped her clean up, pouring disinfectant with one hand and wiping the blood off Jessie's face with the other. Fortunately, there were no signs of worm invasion on her face.
I saw it today. The heartworm. You were right. It feeds on the blood supply. This one died in the sun, but it was the heartworm that killed him.
But as Rose examined Jessie's back, a wound appeared, instantly creating a tense atmosphere. She immediately had Jessie lean over the table and then counted down from 5. By the time Jessie counted to 3, she had already cut open the wound and extracted the wriggling worm. It turns out that Rose was a scientist who had been dedicated to worm research. Today, the discovery of the new filarial worm by Jessie confirmed her theories, marking a significant step forward in prevention and even treatment. But just as their difficult life seemed to improve, reality hit them hard. There was a traitor among them. Carla, with her shaved head, was wandering the streets when she encountered the informed rancher Roy, who mistook her for Jessie, the one who tampered with Tommy's body during the day. She was brought before their mother, Alice. The so-called ranchers are those who persuade healthy individuals to accept worm implantation. Although Alice knew they had caught the wrong person, she still lectured Carla.
Folks need simple things. Food. Sleep. Love. Yeah, they need things sometimes they don't even know they need till it hits you right in the face. We need God and the true light He provides. Ask yourself, am I happy?
Carla cast her eyes on the apple nearby and upon receiving permission immediately stood up, grabbed one and indulged in it. Of course, this comes at a cost. Alice determined that Carla and Jessie were friends and decided to have the authorities modify them with insect implants, promising to take her in and provide a warm home in the future. Having had enough of days spent hiding and starving, Carla chose to accept and brought Roy to the residence. She hoped to be the last one implanted, but in fact there were already insect eggs in the apple. Roy pulled out a piece of filarial worm, roaring and squeezing out a puddle of white liquid. This is the most effective implant material, and it seems to carry a certain implied meaning. At this moment, Jessie and Rose were still relaxing in the bathtub, reminiscing about the past and envisioning the future. And when facing the bugs, the two of them had exactly the same attitude.
We refuse to let them take our bodies, take our minds, and we refuse to serve them.
Upon hearing the doorbell, Rose got up to answer the door. Moments later, Carla appeared. Just as Jessie finished dressing, Roy brought Rose in. He wanted to use the spray bottle but was knocked over by Rose's elbow, so he angrily knocked Rose unconscious to the ground and then dragged him into the bathtub. Jessie wanted to stop it but was tightly held by Carla, watching helplessly as Roy poured a can of insects into the bathtub, further contaminating their hopes. Although Rose regained consciousness, she was still held down firmly by Roy, unable to get up. By the time Jessie finally broke free and knocked Roy out with a flashlight, it was already too late. Realizing something was wrong, the lively Carla turned around and fled. She really managed to escape through the elevator, leaving only Jessie with a murderous look. Back in the room, Rose knelt helplessly on the floor, with the dim background intensifying the atmosphere of despair to the extreme. Once emotions calmed a bit, Jessie advised Rose to leave quickly since the address had already been exposed. But Rose bound Roy, planning to use the ready host sample for a live dissection, further venting his hatred.
The more we hurt him, the harder they'll come for us.
I'll make it fast.
The irrational Rose did as he said, stabbing through Roy's head with one knife and then sucked from his beak. Although it was not fully dawn, Jessie drove Roy's car and took Rose to an abandoned school, which was brighter than their previous residence. But Rose was not the least bit happy because he smelled the odor coming from Jessie. This is a symptom unique to worm disease. It causes individuals to reject outsiders and makes close contact difficult. Just as Jessie was about to comfort her, Rose opened the door and felt the sunlight with her arm.
Feels that jumping around and then they're digging in deeper.
Jessie advised Rose to join the normal people so she could at least survive. But Rose seemed to be speaking a farewell, telling Jessie to go to her hometown, Amish, to find Susanna who could take her in. Before Jessie could step forward to stop him, Rose rushed outside, exposed to the intense sunlight, perishing along with the borers in his body. With a clear mind, Jessie drove all the way to the Amish village. This place is far from towns, completely preserving ancient lifestyles, limiting external communication, avoiding electronic devices, and preventing infections. Susan grew up here, and after contracting a bug disease, she was further restricted from going out and has barely seen the outside world. Despite the deteriorating condition, she still wants to experience it. Meanwhile, Carla moved into Alice's house, starting to adapt to her new life, but she felt severe pain in her ribs. Alice comforted her by saying she should learn to coexist with the bugs, especially those in her brain, treating them as her own children. Carla tried, but the misery did not alleviate. Instead, it worsened. Alice deduced that the star silkworm larvae had moved to the wrong place, competing with the star silkworm in her waist, necessitating surgical removal. Strong medication was administered. Carla was sent to the medical room, lay on the operating table, and the nurse placed a large bucket in front of her. The doctor first attached numerous sensors to her body, then secured her limbs.
For everyone's safety.
The surgery principle is using sunlight-like spectrum irradiation to force the bugs to come out on their own. As the intensity increased, Carla's pain became more severe. She began to vomit bugs, feeling similar to undergoing chemotherapy. Of course, initially it was minor, as the large star silkworms were not easily affected. At this point, the intensity reached level 5, but only slender worms emerged. The star silkworms seemed to be stuck.
Fucking get it over with!
Get her done.
Go to 6. Double speed.
The irradiation reached its limit. The star silkworm finally gripped its head. The doctor used tweezers to grasp it but couldn't pull it out.
Don't let her go. Keep a hold of it. I got the tail. We need a local. Chaser. Tap. 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 Movement. Cut it.
Observing parasites that are still moving helps us gain a deeper understanding of parasitic diseases. After experiencing all this, upon hearing the mayor's recruitment broadcast, Carla suddenly wanted to replace Roy as the ranch owner, uncertain if it was due to new identity acceptance or jealousy of the healthy ones. She found the mayor, a suit-wearing man with a swollen and deformed face, and expressed her thoughts.
Why do you want to be a rancher?
Ranchers are the keepers of the true light.
However, the mayor forced her to face reality with the truth, because the bugs accumulate more and more in the body, treating humans as food, consuming them step by step. So now they are not upholding justice, but merely struggling to survive.
Why do you want to be a rancher?
And if I'm going to suffer, everyone else should too.
Oh. Well, now we're getting somewhere.
Disseminators of false information often know the truth best. The priority is to turn others into the same kind. Carla's first task was to capture Jesse. The fully armed sheriff appeared and handed 2 sets of equipment to Carla and Alice. It turns out that having the bug disease still allows daytime activity, but only official personnel can wear the gear. The sheriff has investigated and confirmed that Jesse went to the Amish. At this moment, Jesse is with Susan experiencing the feeling of driving, and a sense of freedom and exhilaration is in the air. And the broadcast from the radio is even more shocking. It was not the mayor's voice, but content from other cities, including advertisements, weather forecasts, and even live baseball games. It turns out that people in other cities live normal lives completely different from what the mayor promotes.
Fuck! Fuck! Rosie and I were so close!
Just as they were heading to the city, they encountered the sheriff's car. Alice got out of the car to personally verify. Kara also wanted to get out, but was stopped by the sheriff, watching helplessly as Alice grabbed Jesse and was knocked to the ground, exposed to the sunlight. To ensure safety, the sheriff did not offer assistance and instead drove away with Kara. Jesse did not abandon Alice and brought her back to the village. After all, what Jesse felt most toward Alice was a sense of guilt. Alice's final request was to turn off the mayor's radio station.
But I lost my sight, so I could finally hear.
After Alice was cremated, Susanna shaved her head. She was determined to take action with Jesse. Having lost her family, Kara was a bit agitated and directly approached a normal household, enforcing violently and forcibly implanted the worm. She was dismissed by the mayor. She found the mayor and directly pushed his head into the toilet, then closed the lid. Finally, in front of the sheriff, she bit and crushed the mayor's selfish worm, announcing the birth of the queen at the microphone, which was utterly insane. Meanwhile, Jesse and Susanna had reached the radio station. Susanna dealt with the guards, while Jesse destroyed the equipment covering the bands, finally bringing forth the sound of freedom. Suddenly, Kara attacked from behind, intending to kill Jesse. In a moment of desperation, Jesse urged her to listen to the sound of the broadcast, but Kara certainly didn't care about the truth. She now only wanted to be her own queen. So she dragged Jesse next door, burying her face deeply in the mayor's debris. Kara showed a smug smile, completely angering Jesse, who vented her rage on Kara. Susanna took Jesse to the outskirts, allowing Jesse to hide in the back seat. But seeing the rising sun, Jesse rushed forward like a bolt, wanting to give up this polluted life. But this time, Susanna followed in time and draped a blanket over Jesse, preserving a glimmer of hope for her future, just like the distant morning sun. The story ends here. As a non-traditional horror film, Wormtown reflects America's political ecology, religious beliefs, and rural culture. We won't elaborate here, as without personal experience, it's difficult to truly empathize. However, the exploration of social relationships is still worth considering. In fact, the worm represents a form of thought control. Once implanted, it leads to a lack of independent thinking, blindly following the sole voice in the world, adhering to all unreasonable community rules. Even if there's a sense of resistance, most yield to the pressure of survival, gradually losing their original identity, becoming supporters of the worm. Rather than a horror film, it is more like a political allegory. If you don't appreciate deep meanings, watching the original film is not recommended. That's it for today. See you next time.